Greetings, I am Shad, and I am not the boss of anyone really, nor have I ever really been a boss. I've had bosses in the workplace, and I have bosses on shields, and funnily enough, that's what I'm talking about! The shield bosses, not the work ones. Why do shields have bosses? Now, if you're wondering what the heck a boss is in the first place, there's that thing, the metal round dome that generally sits in the center of a shield. And I'm making this video because I have found that, on the internet and other things, certain assumptions about the boss that I don't completely agree with. And so I just wanted to share my thoughts, my opinions as to why you have them on a shield. Now, I've come across some people say that a boss is an offensive tool to use to bash, punch bash, or that a boss is there to catch, weapons as they're sliding down the shield to try and lock them away and gain a bit more control over, your opponent's weapon position and such. Now, it is very true that a boss can be used for both those things, punching people, and to stop weapons from sliding down across the shield. But honestly, I feel both those things are circumstantial benefits, not the reason why you would put them on a shield. So you get the advantage of those things from a boss because of the actual reason of why you would put them on shields. And my reasoning is thus. I don't feel it's effective punching people with the boss of a shield, purely because it is far more effective to punch someone with the edge of the shield. You see, a boss is a round dome, and so there is far more force being dispersed over the surface of the dome when in comparison to the side of the shield. The side of the shield is much thinner, and so it concentrates that force in a much smaller area. Therefore, that force has far more driving force. Use the force! Punching with the shield in this way also has far more reach than with the boss. And also, when you try and punch with the boss, there is far more ways to deflect and stop it, because look at what it's connected to. If you're going to hit anything on this side, which is, look how far away from the boss, which is the impact point you would hope, and look how much is on that side. And so it hits, gets turned, and suddenly you can't hit with the boss anymore. So yeah, like in shield combat, the side is what you want. Now, stopping things? Yeah, I think that's legitimate. I'm not sure, if it's a game changer, but it certainly does it. But I don't feel that's the reason why you would have a boss on the shield. The boss is put on the shield for weight distribution, specifically from the handle or the point on which you're holding the shield. So my shield is perfectly sideways to you now, and do you see how much of my fist is actually sitting past the wall of the shield? So it's sitting in. If the boss wasn't there, my fist could not be sitting anywhere near as close to the actual shield. Now, especially for a round shield, this is very, very important, because a round shield, its weight distribution is perfectly even on every side. And so if you're holding it out like this, if the handle was any way further away from the wall of the shield, the inside wall, well, guess what will happen? Okay? The shield will constantly, and look, it already kind of wants to now, because again, the handle is not perfectly in the center of gravity. It's far more so because we have the cavity that the boss creates to allow their fist to sit closer. And so if the boss wasn't there, this handle would have to be far further out from the inside wall of the shield. And I can use my kite shield handle as an example, because to get the fist to fully wrap in and hold on, this is how far away the handle would have to be from the flat of the inside of the shield. So to get it around just like that. And so again, if I had a handle like that, which you would need if there was no cavity for your fist to kind of rest in, the shield would always want to do that and tilt forward. And that would make it very cumbersome and difficult to use when in combat. Because the boss is there, my fist is resting so much closer to the center of gravity, which makes manipulating and holding the shield so much easier. So again, this is very important in regards to round center grip shields. I mean, if you put straps on it, it throws away the need for a boss completely. And this is where the kite shield comes in, all right? Because the kite shield is a strapped on shield far more so than the round shield, especially, the Viking period round shields. In fact, I have not come across a source that shows an actual Viking style round shield of that size, strapped to the arm, except if they're much smaller. And generally, again, if they're used in cavalry on horseback, because that's where you really want straps. And there's some other circumstances. If you're wondering what those are, please check out my other videos. The answer is, if the shield is strapped to the arm, there is no point in having a boss, except maybe, catching or stopping weapons. It's not going to be any use to you to bash people or anything like that, because again, the corner of the shield is so much better. And so yeah, aside from maybe catching it, which I don't think is a huge benefit, you don't really need it, because a boss is metal. It adds more weight to the shield. It doesn't add anything in terms of its structural integrity. The thing that adds most of the strength to a round shield is this vertical piece of wood. This thing holds the shield together far more so. And in fact, the boss might even weaken the shield a bit more if it wasn't there in the first place, because you've literally had to cut out this whole part of wood. Again, that's an assumption. I could be wrong there, okay? It might not change at all, but I don't think it adds to the strength. It does protect the fist, all right? That's certainly more so. It's metal. This is wood with rawhide stretching over the top. So you would assume metal would protect you a bit better. And so yes, of course it protects the fist, but I mean, to hope that if arrows are coming in, that'll hit a boss over any part of the shield, that's not a reason to have a boss, just to protect this tiny little area on a shield from arrows and other things like that. And I'm saying that if there was no need for the boss in the first place, meaning if it's strapped onto your arm, because you need a boss to bring your fist closer to the center of gravity, which allows you to manipulate and control the shield far better. So, does that work the same with a kite shield? And the answer is actually no, not at all. The reason being, the kite shield is a far different beast. First of all, the distribution of weight from the center point is not even. In fact, there's more weight at the bottom than there is to the top. And so that alone reduces the need for a boss, because the shield is not going to tilt down because there's more weight already down. And so that weight is already going to try and push the shield to remain vertical from the handle. And so resting the shield on my finger, I am not, running into any of the same issues that I had with a round shield. And the other point is that the kite shield, they are more predominantly curved. There were cases of ones that were completely flat, but if they're curved, see the sides? That means the sides of the shield are putting more weight closer to the fist than on a flat shield. And so by putting more weight behind the fist, or closer to the fist, that means the handle is closer to the center of gravity. Therefore, it's not going to tilt and it's going to be more stable. And so you actually do not need a boss on a kite shield. Now, if you did want your hand to be closer to the inside wall of the shield, you would put a boss on it. And there you go. Center grip, boss right there on the kite shield, not a problem. And so that's really preference, but it's not necessary because of the dimensions of the kite shield. And if the shield is strapped to the arm, having a boss on it, there's no functional reason why it's there, really. Catching weapons, but again, meh. Having a boss on a strapped-on kite shield, if anything, is something that's left over from perhaps tradition, or, they had bosses on older type of shields and were used to putting bosses on shields, so we put a boss on this shield just because bosses go on shields. And so that's my reasons as to why you would have a boss on a kite shield, but you don't really need one. And I think the proof of this is from history, because most kite shields that you see, you do see some with, bosses, granted, but most kite shields don't have them at all. And the reason is because they weren't needed. Of course, bucklers, they have a boss type of design. I mean, if they had wood, they had a boss, but if they had all metal, you could just consider that a large boss by itself. And in this case, perhaps that is used for punching a bit. But again, center of gravity thing, but even with the handle being much closer to the center of gravity, it still wants to tilt that way. It just doesn't do it nearly as much. And you have more control over the movement of the shield. If my handle was further away, it would be much harder to keep that shield front and center. So there you go. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Yeah. I am the boss! Because, I've got two bosses. I crack myself up. Tick, 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 tick. It's 3 o'clock! 3 o'clock! That is a big shield with a very little boss. Your shield looks so big, but your boss looks very teeny tiny. I would say that you are overcompensating for something, but evidently not.